Movie Chumps, episode 204, The Insider. Let's get after it.
They're afraid of you, aren't they?
They should be.
The following is a sneak preview of the best reviewed film of the year. An insider ready to speak the truth.
And I want to go on the record.
A reporter who will help him reveal it.
What does this guy have to say that threatens these people?
Together,
I was told...
Don't talk!
Who is this?
they will risk everything. Because where there's smoke, there's fire. Al Pacino.
He's only the key witness in the biggest public issue in history. Does he go on television and tell the truth? Yes. Are we gonna air it? Of course not. Why? Because the more truth he tells, the worse it gets.
Russell Crowe.
I have to put my family's welfare on the line. My girls are crying. My children need me.
You wish you hadn't come forward? You wish you hadn't blown the whistle?
The movie critics call deeply moving.
I fought for you and I still fight.
A powerful edge-of-your-seat thriller. It will pin you to your seat. The best film of the year. Nominated for 5 Golden Globes.
You go public, nothing will ever be the same again.
There's Dad on TV.
The Insider. A Michael Mann film.
So last time we fed you arguably the biggest spectacle of 2024, Gladiator 2. This episode, we pivot to a rather unsexy film about a corporate whistleblower. This may sound like a step down, friends, but The Insider absolutely dazzles with less blood than Gladiator 2, Corrye, but a heck of a lot more drama and acting chops.
It'd been so long since I'd seen The Insider that I'd forgotten, I think, maybe 80% of this. And it was almost like re-seeing it again through fresh eyes. And man, what an amazing monument of a film for Michael Mann, because he shoots this thing that could be somewhat, if in a different context with a different person, different director, could come off extremely boring, but he shoots this like a thriller. And it's so intense, and honestly, considering our climate as it is, still pretty relevant, I think, to today's mindset.
Holy smokes, yeah, amen to that. This feels like back-to-back Russell Crowe movies too, I was thinking, because of how much we talked about him in Gladiator 2. Forgot how marvelous he was overall in this. Another A+ casting job too by Mann and his team. I love the choices in here.
It's so incredible to look at that 3-year stretch where he got nominated for Best Actor each time, to see how different each one of those roles really is, because they are vastly different from each other.
Absolutely. Hey, coming up in the broadcast here, we've got some interesting Christmas movie nuggets concerning Home Alone, what Macaulay Culkin is talking about recently, as well as an interesting nugget regarding Chris Columbus and Chevy Chase for Christmas Vacation. We're also talking about a possible John Wick sequel as well. But first, as always, per tradition, good friend, 5 questions. My turn this time.
Also, later this podcast, Luigi Mangione will be joining us. Oh, wait, no, I'm getting word that he's not available. Never mind.
He's got that, like, what an idiot, though, by the way. Like, you get caught at McDonald's of all places. I feel like all he needed to do was to shave those eyebrows a little bit, and he would have been home free.
Honestly, like he was making everyone look like fools up till then. Like, why not just a couple different actions he could have been across the Canadian border in my mind, but.
So this kind of ties into my first questions here.
Okay, then.
With the assassination of the CEO of United Health, it's hard not to draw comparisons to The Insider, as you kind of mentioned, and capitalism run amok. But with all due respect to Brian Thompson, what's the biggest mistake Luigi Mangione made to get caught?
I mean, honestly, I think it's
because we're all attracted to crime in general. This is a celebration of Luigi, of course. This, of course, is just,
not at all.
We're nerding out about like a big crime story, and it's been fascinating
because movie guys like us are already seeing the movie in our heads about who's going to direct, who's going to star. Because let's be very honest about this before I answer your question. When this guy goes on trial, it's the healthcare system that's going on trial too, because that's
Right.
exactly what his defense attorney is going to go for.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and it's weird to me to look at the whole everything surrounding it and people thinking that they're celebrating this murder. No, they are celebrating the fact that corporate entity like this, a for-profit healthcare system that dominates our country and routinely denies coverage and kills hundreds and thousands of people every year, finally took a kick in the nuts from a group of people that they thought they were pretty much dominating for. And I heard someone say, and it's one of those things that I kind of agreed and disagreed. Is like, people are suddenly realizing that there's a lot of people out there that aren't wealthy elites that are looking at the guillotines with gleams in their eye, and they're starting to get scared. But to answer your question, so we don't get completely off topic here, I think that his biggest blunder, honestly, was not continuing to keep his face covered. He should have kept his face covered. Like, what I would have done is keep my face covered until I get to Grand Central Station, get in a booth, and completely change my outfit. Like,
Yes.
get a suit and a tie, whatever. Because
you can't wear the hood.
Yeah, and he had to freaking drop his riz and riz up that chick he was trying to like flirting with there. And also,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the biggest mistake. You can forget about the, getting a coffee at Starbucks or going to McDonald's or whatever. Cover your face, get to an area where you can completely change so you look nothing like you are set up there, and then go from there.
Question 2. Good answer. Good way to kick things off. Was thinking about Blockbuster Video recently. If you were to start a mom and pop video store, give us 3 films a little off the radar that you believe you could market well and promote to boost rentals.
So not
it can't be like Godfather, Heat, and Shawshank Redemption. Like, obviously those ones people know, blah, blah, blah. But you get a chance to kind of do your own marketing, right? You can put the signage out there. People walk in. You've got more signage. You can do little games, whatever you want to do.
So I would kind of like take the route of, let's look at the traditional genres, but maybe a film that people aren't quite as familiar with nowadays, but just because it's been lost to time and people are just like, well, what's that one? My first one would be, honestly, one that I just watched recently, and it's gotten some critical reevaluation in recent years, and that's William Friedkin's Sorcerer from 1977. Because I would appeal to, like, hey, do you like the hardcore, like, 1970s crimes films? You've heard, Dirty Harry, Serpico, things like that you may have seen. Well, here's one that the critics basically shit on at the time, but honestly, in my mind, is an excellent gem. So I'd go with that one. And then I'd play to the mindset of like the we're still a superhero genre culture, as much as it's kind of taken a downturn a little bit and lost some money, I still think it's there. I'd try to promote Liam Neeson's Darkman. I just like, hey, dude from Taken, way back when, before he was even in Schindler's List, he was in a Sam Raimi movie. Sam Raimi did Spider-Man. You should check this one out. And then I'd probably try to gear towards maybe, and just for my own self, what's the science fiction is obviously a huge genre out there. I'd try to push Ethan Hawke in Predestination, which honestly is a film that to me is one of the top 5 science fiction films of the 21st century. And nobody talks about this thing at all. And also who's in it is, I forget what her name is now, but she plays Shiv from the show with Brian Cox that just got off the air from HBO.
Oh my gosh.
Succession.
Jeez.
So I think I could sell those, because I could sell the genre and sell the idea of, hey, there's some actually known actors in this, but it's a lesser known film, and I think you'd appreciate these. Because all 3 of those have really high profile actors in them. So Sorcerer's got Roy Scheider. Darkman has Frances McDormand and Liam Neeson. And then of course, with, like I said, with Predestination, you've got Ethan Hawke and whatever her name is. I can't think of her name right now.
You could have given me 50 million guesses, and I wouldn't have guessed those 3 for you. I still believe the mom and pop video store will make a comeback. I think there are some out there randomly, but I do think there is that kind of community and nerd community where there are movies out there where you can't find on a streaming service. And I think not everybody's going to want to buy every freaking service, especially with prices going up.
I agree, and I also believe that I think physical media is really starting to make a comeback, especially with the younger generation who are starting to appreciate it more. So yeah, I could definitely see that. Hell, I'd go do it.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, absolutely.
Question 3, where do you stand on Mexican Sundays?
I mean, let's be honest here. You're putting a hat on a hat here. I mean, we're trying to pretend, seriously that your Perry's vanilla ice cream is I don't even know how to phrase this. We're putting peanuts on the sundae, okay? That's all it is. That's all a Mexican sundae is that we're adding that extra aspect of it to it, which is just peanuts. It's like
it's almost disrespectful to our friends from the South. Seriously,
it's an insult to our friends from the South, but also I think to most people's intelligence. Like, unless you are 3 years old, most people are going to look at it and go, "Oh, it's you put peanuts on it, called it a Mexican sundae, and charged me $2 extra. Go fuck yourself." Come on.
Corey sticking it to the healthcare system and whoever the hell's naming desserts.
Yeah.
Question 4. By the way, I got to apologize. I'm battling some kind of cold / sore throat. So if I sound like the Men's Warehouse guy, blame the weather. You're going to love the way you look. Question 4. We try to be respectful of the fairer sex on this pod, of course. You and I, Corey, both gentlemen. But who's an underrated smoke show in Hollywood that never seemed to have gotten her due?
That's an interesting one.
So, for example, you can't pick, say, Catherine Zeta-Jones or Sydney Sweeney.
I don't think that she gets as enough credit as she deserves to. Maybe because she didn't have as big a career, but Rebecca De Mornay is absolutely gorgeous. And still at I think at
94.
She's not 94. I think she's in her 60s now or something. Still looks gorgeous. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Rebecca De Mornay, and hell of an actress too. So
yeah, she's super talented. Question 5. All right, big time scenario here. You and your fam are in a local park. And as you approach the car to return home, you notice a suitcase, and inside stacks upon stacks of $100 bills. So there's got to be, according to like movie logic, there's probably like $20 million in there, even though according to real logic, it's probably
like 100 grand.
Right. So a crap load of money.
Yeah.
There's no other cars there. You can loosely confirm that there can't be a GPS in a suitcase. So this isn't a case of like No Country for Old Men when you got what's his face tracking you down. You also notice no surveillance cameras anywhere.
Okay.
Clearly there's something nefarious.
So clearly living in fantasy world with
hey man,
these stipulations.
Hey, it's Christmas time. Come on.
Yeah.
Question: do you take the suitcase? Why or why not?
I take the suitcase and I take it to the police station.
Not the answer I was looking for. Darn it. Because you're a gentleman or because you don't want to get like killed in your sleep?
No, because it's the right thing to do. Mama raised me right. I don't know what you want me to say. I would hate to, I'd hate to. It's probably for nefarious reasons anyway. No one just leaves a suitcase full of money out there. So it's probably drug money or some shit like that. And, you just hope that after the requisite 6 months or whatever it is, maybe that little taste comes to me. So
there you have it, folks. Those are your 5 questions. Now it is time for headlines.
I was just going to say before we get into headlines, is that I did not mean to do the dramatic pause that I did. It was like, I would take the case to the police station. Anyway, headlines time. Ooh, let's go to press.
All right, we're talking Christmas movies. I teased it earlier. Macaulay Culkin saying Joe Pesci got a little carried away when they were filming the original and classic Home Alone. This is something new.
Yeah, he was recently. Culkin was at a screening in Illinois for Home Alone, as I think we're is it I believe it's the 31st year anniversary of
1990,
the film. I think
89.
oh, no, 34. That's right. It's 1990. So 34 years, almost 35 years since that movie came out. And he was doing a Q&A after that and basically revealed that Pesci actually bit him during one of the scenes. He says he was trying to scare me. He was like, I want to be menacing to this kid. And then he took it a little too far. And Culkin says, I have a scar. And that he said, adding that Pesci had a look of this pure panic on his face when it happened. He says, I saw his face and I've never, ever seen Joe Pesci actually scared. And he said, because he's like, oh God, I just bit a kid. So he was like, kind of like, took that one step too far, he thinks.
Love the love any kind of Home Alone background info because we've all seen it so many damn times. At least some of us, because I know you weren't. You always said that was overrated, right? In your
I,
world.
I always thought it was overrated. It's grown on me. Over the years, especially since my son really likes it. I
Ah,
think he actually, in some ways, likes the second one better. But yeah, it's grown on me over the years for sure.
second headline: Nosferatu. Lot of hype. Now that filming is over, the project is over. The movie is it technically out, or it will be?
Comes out Christmas Day, and I'm
Okay,
actually
so
going to
we're
see it
close.
next Friday. I'm doing a double dip. I'm going with my friend John to see Nosferatu, and then I'm hanging out after that. I'm going to go see A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic. So
Nothing says the birth of Christ like a double dip of Bob Dylan and Nosferatu.
yes, exactly.
So Nosferatu, Bill Skarsgård. Here's a fun fact here. Never again, he says, will he play something or someone so evil after playing the titular character.
Yep, Bill Skarsgård was doing an interview with Empire, and from all accounts, I guess he is phenomenal in this film, like next level great. And but he said when we were done with it, I was like, I never want to play something this evil again. I never want to put on prosthetics again. It really affected me. Orlok is an occult sorcerer and a vampire, and it did a number on me in terms of just trying to inhabit that space. And honestly, I can't really blame him. You know, he's had, I think he's an excellent actor, but he's had some dark roles that he's done. Like Pennywise the clown is
Yeah.
not a happy clown. You know, the character that he played in John Wick Chapter 4 is a fucking bastard. So I mean, even looking at this and like I saw that he took the role and I thought, well, I mean, good for him. But part of me was like, man, Bill,
This
I
is
don't
the
know.
thing that puts you over the top, you know?
I was like, in my head, I'm like, man, Bill, I don't know you from Adam, but I hope to God you went on a like a tropical vacation afterward and took your because he's got a wife, I think, or he's a partner and two kids. But and the thing is so funny to me is like he is so not that in interviews. Like he is a goofball. Like you
Yeah.
should see him. They they made the right move putting him with Willem Dafoe on the press tour, but because they are just like the biggest goofballs with each other, it's absolutely hysterical. So honestly, yeah. And the thing is, I think he can play a good guy. I've already seen him do it this year with one of the film with Boy Kills World, where he was the titular hero. So I'd actually like to see him in, as great as he is as an actor and great as he is as a villain. I really would like to see him, you know, in some more heroic roles. And then I forgot he played in the remake of The Crow, and Eric Draven's character is not, you know, it's not exactly a ball of Skittles and sunshine either. So yeah, let's. I hate to say it, but let's play some happy roles for a little bit here, Bill. Get your mind right.
Yeah, he needs to like play the guy or woman or somebody who invents a cure for AIDS or whatever. Like he needs a
Something
big
like that.
turnaround. Here's a headline for my wife Lois. She loved the show Murder She Wrote back in the day. Now she may get a movie version with one of her favorite actors.
Yeah, Matlock has returned on TV, so might as well just fire up Murder She Wrote. Yeah, that's right. Universal is looking to make a Murder She Wrote movie, and they're eyeing right now the character of the character. Sorry, and they're eyeing right now Jamie Lee Curtis to play the role. Famously made the role is made famous, of course, by Angela Lansbury, who played the role on the CBS series for 12 seasons, which I did not realize that it ran that long. For some reason, I only thought it ran for 5 or 6, but yeah, it ran for 12 seasons. Character, obviously, in this case is Jessica Fletcher. I think my mom used to watch it, but I never really got into it. But I think, you know, if done right, I think this is obviously going to appeal to somewhat of a niche older crowd. Obviously, I think, but I like the choice. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is, uh, is a fantastic actress, and I see, you all the time talk about, second acts, right? That's a big thing with you. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form Jamie Lee Curtis ever went away, but it's nice to see her on the back end of her career really kind of have a resurgence. She wins the Best Supporting Actress with Everything Everywhere All at Once. She revitalized the Halloween series. I mean, for God's sake, she's even doing like a Freaky Friday sequel coming up soon. So
My family's
kudos,
pumped about that.
kudos to her.
Yeah, she's doing big things at this age. How old is she now?
She's, I think, in her
Mid
60s, I
60s?
believe. Yeah, something
Gotta
like
be.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a delight. You and I always talk about quirky little tidbits that we like in movies or Hollywood, trivia or whatever like that. And Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, one hell of a film.
Yeah.
Super quirky.
We have to do that sometime.
So much so that I'm surprised we haven't done it yet. So
No, we
much so that even Patton Oswalt is like, I had no idea what the hell was going on with my role in that film. Small role he had, of course.
So the film comes out in 1999, same year actually that The Insider came out as well. So 25 years ago. And this is Patton Oswalt, like really early in his career. I don't even think he'd started doing King of Queens yet, or he may have just started doing King of Queens. So he had this small role in Magnolia. And he was speaking on the Fly on the Wall podcast, and he says, it's brilliant, but anyone who works with Paul Thomas Anderson will tell you they don't give you the whole script. They send you your pages. So all I had was I'm beaten up in a casino, and then I'm suddenly in a green wetsuit, and I'm hanging in this tree in the valley, and they're dumping Arrowhead waters on my head to keep me from passing out because it was so hot. And Oswald, he's like, even though as a young actor, he says, I hit my breaking point, and then finally I just went, Paul, what the fuck is going on here? What is this? And he just said, I'll just put it this way. You're the first frog that falls out of the sky, and it'll make sense to you when you see the movie. But, and then he says, but co-host Dana Carvey was quick to point out, no, you won't. But of course, Oswald wanted to say the movie is phenomenal, fantastic. Obviously, PTA is one of our visionaries, and he obviously got it when it came out. But we've seen that before. Same shit kind of happened with when we talked about Mad Max Fury Road. Is that you sometimes as an actor you got to trust your director because you can't always see the forest for the trees and they can. I don't know personally. Obviously, I've never done any acting outside of high school stuff. I don't know how I would be able to respond well to being in the dark like that situation, though.
Yes.
You only give me certain pages. You have no sense of what's going on. Like, I don't think I could operate like that. I could. It's one thing to deal with Fincher and doing like 50 takes. But he's so mapped out, you'll have your script in your hand and you know what's going on.
Right.
And of course I get the secrecy behind maybe you only get 5 or 6 pages if you're trying to be in like Star Wars and Superman or something like that. But with a situation like this, it's like, come on, man, you got to give me something more than that.
Love that kind of background shit, though. Inside dope. That's what we like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Our fifth headline, John Wick 5 with Keanu Reeves. Could it happen? It may come down to physicality.
Let's hope not. But he says you can never. He was talking on CBS Mornings because this week Sonic the Hedgehog 3 comes out, and he's actually voicing Shadow in the film, if you didn't know. And he says, you can never say never, but my knees right now are saying you can't do another John Wick. So my heart does, but I don't know if my knees can do it, which is why he says, and then his director father was quick to chime in saying, which is why you can play Shadow for decades to come. You heard it here first. Keanu will be playing Shadow for the next 20 years. But I get where Keanu's coming from. Like, I've always we've always talked about before that Keanu has a certain range. He's never going to be Daniel Day-Lewis, but you cannot question this man's work ethic, and you cannot question this man's physicality, because when it comes to shit like that, he is all in. I mean, we've seen, the trainings and the things that he's done, but that's a lot of effort. And, when you're hitting almost 60, it's more and more with each time. So I can see where he's coming from. But also, if I was him, I'd be definitively like, no, Chapter 4 was a perfect capper. Let's leave it where it is. I'm fine with him showing up in Ballerina because it's set between, I think, John Wick Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. And it's a one-off thing that's, with Ana de Armas in this case. It's not really anything to do with him. I think he's only in one scene. But for the love of God, I don't want Chapter 5. And I really hope both him and Chad Stahelski are just like, nah, bro.
Yeah, I say no one to bow out. But also, like you mentioned, 4 was a good way to go out, the way they went out. and you still got 4 flicks that you can rewatch over and over again. So we're
Yeah.
still going to get that taste. And those movies are so rewatchable, as we've pointed out.
I started to
Mike,
think the other day, like, there's very few, there's a lot of great trilogies. There's very few perfect quartets. For me, it's like
yeah,
that
yeah.
and maybe Mad Max at this point. So yeah.
Our girl Zoe Saldana making her first appearance in headlines, I believe, tonight. She says her lack of recognition about her Avatar performance, of course, with all the CGI and all that, was kind of a bummer for her. I can see that.
Yeah, she's right now getting a lot of Oscar buzz for her role in Amelia Perez. So possibly that she's going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And I've always considered her a fantastic actress. I think she's great, even in movies that not necessarily aren't that good. She's say what you want about the quality of the show, but she is excellent in the television program Lioness that's on Paramount Plus. Really, really good. But she was talking to the Independent and about this whole situation. He says old habits die hard, and when you have old establishments, it's really hard to bring forward change. And I understand that, so I'm not bitter about it, but it's quite deflating when you give 120% of yourself into something. I mean, not winning is okay, not being nominated is okay, but when you're overlooked and minimized and completely disregarded, and that's where the crux of things I think for me lie, is that a lot of these actors I think have gotten to the point in their life where is awards and chasing glory important to me, or is it doing the good work? And I'm more pissed about the fact that the reason the lack of recognition happens for motion capture roles is because people consider it a lesser performance because it is motion capture. And I'm here to say that it's absolute horseshit. That looking back on it, there's no good goddamn reason that Andy Serkis shouldn't have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for The Two Towers and or The Return of the King. Everything he did in that thing was him, except for the fact that they had to they did motion capture and did what he did. Same situation with Zoe Saldana. If you go back and look at that that first Avatar film, and say what you want about it being, Dances with Wolves in Space or whatever. If you go back and look at that film and look at her performance, just her performance, it's hard to say that that wasn't one of the best performances of 2009, blue-skinned alien or not.
It's weird because I don't think it's so much that she doesn't get the recognition. Well, I guess no, that's true. It's more, and it's not that I don't think people are hating on her performance necessarily, or even like Andy Serkis's performance. I think it's more like you get so caught up in the film, in like the eye-popping special effects, that it almost just camouflages the fact that these actors do so well in these performances, especially with Serkis. I mean, he's had like hit upon hit where you don't even realize it's him almost.
I mean, look at the shit he's had 2, right? I mean, he's had Caesar
with Gollum and then with Caesar,
Gollum,
and more so with Caesar because you get more time to cook with Caesar. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm definitely with you there. I think, and I think or I even could think of the same thing of Scarlett Johansson and her. I mean, that was a tremendous acting performance, despite it just being her as her voice. So I think we're going to get to the point. I think it's sometime soon where there's going to be a motion capture that will end up being nominated for performance, and I hope it does happen at some point.
Hey, the Home Alone films, some of the Harry Potters, Mrs. Doubtfire, director Chris Columbus has made some awesome, absolutely iconic films. He was going to do Christmas Vacation, but for one specific reason, and that reason is a person.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised about this, but he was speaking.
Not at all.
Not in the least. We're probably not telling our listeners or anybody who's a fan of movies anything new by this statement. But he was speaking to Empire Magazine, and he was actually the original director for Christmas Vacation, which was written by John Hughes, and they were frequent collaborators. I didn't know that actually Christopher Columbus was the original director.
Didn't know that either.
But he said. What he said, he says, John Hughes had the same agent as me, sent me the script for Christmas Vacation, thought it was very funny. I even shot some initial establishing second unit shots for the movie, shots that are in the film now. And then I met with Chevy Chase. It's no surprise, you've heard this story a million times, but he was a complete jerk. And even though I was in a situation where I desperately needed a job, I decided that I had to bow out. 2 weeks later, I got 2 scripts from John Hughes again. One was a script called Reach the Rock, which I didn't respond to, and the other was Home Alone.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Mm-hmm.
If you enjoyed Top Gun Maverick, there's a chance you'll enjoy the special effects and feel of the upcoming Superman film. That's according to James Gunn himself.
Yeah, he was this past week. He was actually talking to comicbook.com and Deadline, and he said, I wrote up this big document on action and what our philosophy is of action, how we shoot it and what it is, and keeping it alive in the air, as well as on the ground. And to be able to shoot stuff in the sky as if we were shooting it because everything was rougher. Like it's in Guardians of the Galaxy, like it's in the Suicide Squad, and being able to shoot stuff in the sky like that's really hard. So we took a lot of from films like Top Gun Maverick, which we are shooting flying things. We shoot a lot of our action with actual drones flying in and around Superman and the people that he's flying with, the engineer, whoever else that he's fighting up in the air. And then we did that in sound stages. We got these really small, crazy drones now. We've got some of the best flyers in the world here who are working with it. And so we use those guys a lot, and everything's planned out with me, as it always is. But at the same time, I've gotten even more into finding new stuff on the set and new moments and exploring that stuff, finding magic where it is. I think this is a really cool approach. I mean, Top Gun Maverick is one of the best action films to me in the last 10 years. And the way they shot that thing was visually spectacular. So I like this idea a lot. Have you got a chance to see a little bit of the teaser or the moving poster with the music that they did so far?
Yes, really enjoyed the music.
It-
And I just like the idea of that kind of promotion. It's a little something
It's-
different. Like it's more of a taste than the usual, and it's not necessarily a teaser trailer. I thought it was a cool idea. I think that's going to be kind of a watershed moment.
I'm excited. Yeah, I 100% feel the same. The teaser trailer itself comes out tomorrow, which I saw is like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And first of all, I'm like, that's not a teaser. That's a trailer for me. But maybe you don't.
Right.
But at the same time, I remember I saw the poster. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I clicked on it, and you hear the music, the John Williams like revamped whatever music that they were just doing for somebody just kind of vocalizing it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this 60-second music over a moving poster, and I'm getting goosebumps. And the very simple tagline of "Look up," right? And I think that something there that speaks to a lot of us right now, that we're looking for something to look up to. We're looking for some light in the darkness, in my mind, for a lot of things. And I think Superman as a character kind of embodies that type of person, that somebody that we aspire to. And obviously, it's a callback to the original, films. Look up in the air. It's a bird. It's a plane. And I was actually, and I don't want to get off on a rant here off track, but
Too late,
I,
asshole.
I was
I'm just
listening
joking.
to somebody talk about the Zack Snyder films. And listen, I like them. I like them a lot. I really love Man of Steel. I actually think I may like it more than the original Superman. But somebody pointed out very clearly that what he was trying to do with those movies, the superheroes in them were antithetical to what they were originally created for. And if you look at the films as a whole, they're very, very metal, but they're somewhat dour, and they're sometimes difficult to find joy in them. And that's not to say that because of that they're lesser films. I like them, I enjoy them, I own them. But at the same time, I think the type of Superman that we got in 1978, and I'm not going to say it's going to be to that level, or it's going to have, because I think if we try to completely mimic that, it's going to come off corny and just not good. But I think that type of Superman is something the movie going public, and I think a society as a whole desperately needs right now.
I agree. I think we need that's something or someone to look up to. And I hope, and I know I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, I hope it's as good as kind of Gunn and the crew are gunning for, no pun intended. Because I said this with Batman when the Batman first came out. I'm like, we don't need another Batman. Christian Bale was perfect. And I thought that about Man of Steel and the following films with Superman, with Henry. And it's like, do we need another one of these? But sometimes I think, you know what? Yes, we do. We need another nice little twist, something with a little dose of optimism, which we didn't get as much in those last ones because they were so cinematic and almost dramatic. So yeah, I'm here for it. I'll let you know tomorrow. By the way, we say tomorrow. December 19th as we record this on the 18th. The 19th is when the
9
trailer is going
a.m.
to come out.
drops 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just have this feeling.
People are going to be excited, I think.
I just have this feeling that we're going to get something special.
Yeah,
And I have
hope
nothing
so.
to base that off of other than,
Instinct.
other than James Gunn's past works, which have proven to be really good, if in some instances transcendently great. Uh, but listen to this. I more than anything want this to be a great Superman film, and I think we're going to get a real sense of the tone tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to as well.
And that concludes headlines, ladies and gentlemen. Now it is time for our feature presentation here. This film, The Insider, 1999, based on The Man Who Knew Too Much, a 1996 article in Vanity Fair by Marie Brunner, which is a hell of a read, by the way, if you get your hands on it. I believe it's free online. So let me start off this way, Corey Cook. From what you know about Michael Mann, you and I are huge fans. What do you think he saw in this story that made him say, I could turn this into a gripping thriller despite not being a very sexy story, per se?
I think he looked at it because there's so many elements of human drama and the human condition that come into play here that I think he felt he could make this a great movie because, Jeffrey Wigand's whistleblowing activities took a lot of, and it's highlighted in the film, took a lot of faith. It took a lot of guts and courage. And let's be honest, it took a lot of sacrifice. The guy lost his money, his reputation. He lost his wife to doing something he felt ultimately was to the public good. And that's exposing tobacco companies sitting there and saying and lying and saying that tobacco is not addictive when they took scientific steps to make nicotine even more effective than it already was. And I think he capitalized on that, but he also capitalized on I think I think Al Pacino's Lowell Bergman says it in here. Capitalized the idea of it's something more than saying, oh, cigarettes are bad for you. We're no shit Sherlock. Everybody knows that. But there's a difference between knowing that cigarettes are bad for you and not knowing that the people that are selling you that stuff are manipulating it to make it even worse and making it more addictive, and then lying about it. Because I think Americans can take a lot of shit. We don't take lying very well.
No.
I think they could. He was able to make this compelling because Jeffrey Wigand, even though he is a doctor and a scientist and educated and stuff, he's also, I think, kind of a regular Joe in some ways who's put in an extraordinary situation. And I think we can all feel and connect with somebody who's, if I take this action, I'm worried about my income. I'm worried about the future of my wife. I'm worried about the future of my children. I think he was able to sell that and sell that paranoia. And I think Michael Mann was able to say, to look and say, you know what? I don't know if we've had a really sexy type of, news thriller type of film, maybe since Network. And I think he wanted to encapsulate that, bring back, the whole All the President's Men situation. And I think he knew with his skills and with the right actors like he got in the situation that he could succeed, and he did.
What did you enjoy more, the big tobacco versus whistleblower angle, or the should they or shouldn't they publish the interview battle at CBS in 60 minutes?
That's like asking me, do you want fudge on your sundae or peanut butter sauce? Because I think they're both.
Here we go again with the Mexican Sunday reference.
Here we go again with that.
And I asked that because I came into this on the rewatch. This is only, I think, my third time. It was one of those movies. It's gotten to the point where we've talked about this so many times before, where there's certain movies where I've only seen them a couple times, and I couldn't tell you that much about it if you asked before the rewatch. But I remember liking the film, if that makes sense. Like I couldn't name 3 or 4 scenes from this movie before the rewatch, but I remember loving the movie from before. So it was a surprise to me to see how much of the whole newsroom battle that encapsulated the movie more so than the whole big tobacco versus whistleblower angle, to the point where I'm surprised how little of the whole tobacco versus Weigand, dynamic was actually in the film. I mean, I felt like it was like 60-40 at least, news versus big tobacco battle here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're equally compelling, but I
Right.
agree. I think what gets heavier weight, and maybe even surprisingly, is the decision whether or not to even air the story on 60 Minutes, because really the main, little man versus the big tobacco company things that we see are the early on when Russell Crowe's character of Jeffrey Wigand is brought in to talk about his non-disclosure agreement he's caused, and there's kind of some threats against his family and situation then. And then later on when he's doing his deposition, a wonderful scene which I think we've got to talk about on its own in a little bit. And then other than that, there's really not a ton of it. All of it is more wrapped into a personal story of a person trying to do the right thing and sacrificing it. Meanwhile, Al Pacino's Lowell Bergman, who's not manipulating, but is trying to get a good man to make the right choice. And now we have to deal with the fact that corporations come into play, and it's like, hey, we could possibly be opening ourselves up to liability and a billion-dollar lawsuit, but at the same time, CBS is trying to be sold to somebody else, and there's other people that benefit. And I think the things that is so compelling to me is that scene where Pacino is basically railing against that and saying, like, we're not going to air this because it is the truth, just kind of combative, and thinking that Mike Wallace, who Christopher Plummer, who's amazing as Mike Wallace in this movie, is
He's
on his side.
incredible.
Is on his side, and he says, "I'm with Don on this one." And as much as shit as we give Pacino sometimes about, hey, ha, his later whatever stuff, the look on his face when Mike says that looks like somebody punched him right in the nuts. Like you could see all the wind went right out of him, because you're like, this is one of my closest friends for the last 14 years. I would think the guy who has the most journalistic integrity I know would side with me. And he's saying, fuck no, I'm siding with the company in this case.
One of the better Pacino performances. Yeah, he really knows how to hold back and bring forth that Pacino energy that we know and love. I think that's one of the better performances in that regard. I mean, he's so good at doing that in so many films that it almost becomes one of those things you take for granted. The same way so many of us take for granted LeBron and how good he is, because we just go, it's because he's tall and he's strong. But you forget all these other things that embody, his talent. That was one of the things that grabbed me the most was the performance. It's really three main performances. Him, of course, Crowe, who seems to be playing a completely different character than like pick any other three favorite Crowe performances.
No Maximus.
And not at all. And of course, the one that surprised me more than anyone was, I'm a huge Mike Wallace fan, and coming into this, because I don't remember Plummer's performance from before, shame on me, slap me in the face. I come into this going, this is going to be a shit show. Plummer is Mike Wallace, my boy. Wow, was I mistaken. I mean, you forgot that it was even Plummer as Wallace. He just embodied that kind of bulldog, like upper class, condescending, but also dogged. I mean, he was fun to watch. Almost, I could have had another hour with just his screen time alone.
I think he embodied Mike Wallace, because Mike Wallace to me is one of the best on-screen journalists of the last 60 years. Asked great questions, I'm never afraid of asking tough questions. Always believed in the integrity of media, of print and regular on-screen TV media. And right out of the gate, Plummer is hot. Sitting there yelling at the sheiks like, dude. And then I love how low, Al Pacino's character pulls him aside. Are you done fucking around now, or do you need to get a little more juiced up? He's like, nah, I got my heart going. I'm okay now. But it's so funny to see him as great a journalist as he is, that at this point in his career, he's in his 70s and he's seen a lot over 40, 50 years, to still fall subject to that naivete that even though I'm working for a big corporation like CBS, I still think we have the best interests at heart. And I think Lowell's just out on an island here. He's being paranoid. He's being this. And then that amazing scene, because Bloll's about to take a vacation because they told him to. He's like, you got to stick around and see my 3 minutes refuting this stuff on CBS News tonight. And he gets out there and they ask him a question and he says yes, and they cut everything. And then it kind of dawns on him and he loses his fucking shit and is just like, Mike, how about Mr. Wallace? And I love the fact that there's that full circle moment at the end where he's sitting there and he's talking to Don Hewitt or talking to Lloyd Bergman with Don Hewitt, and he thinks that and Don thinks Mike's on his side, and he's like, "Nah, I'm with Lloyd on this one, or I'm with Lowell on this one. We got to air." He's like, "You fucked up, Don. We fucked up, and we gotta make this right." I wonder. I almost think that he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I could be wrong, but he is great as Mike Wallace in this movie. He's one of the. If you don't have any other reason to watch this movie other than that, do it for just his performance alone.
I got to mention that I like how you brought up the opening kind of scene where I forget where they are, but interviewing the Sheik there. And my first thought during that whole process is, oh, there goes actor Cliff Curtis playing the Sheik, who, especially if you're on Twitter and social media a lot, people joke around about this. Cliff Curtis has somehow managed to play every race on the planet in movies. I mean, he's played like Hispanic, he's played like Mexican, Cuban, Arabic, Persian. I'm sure he'll play Jewish, American, Irish, Catholic. I mean, everything. And he shows up. It's almost like a joke now when I see him pop up somewhere. And he's a good actor.
He's a great actor. He's absolutely in on the joke too, because it's great to see some of the interviews where he act him. He's like, I don't know. I guess I'm a I'm a utility man race person when it comes to movies or whatever. But yeah, it's funny how he shows up in those situations. Like he actually underrated, very smaller role considering the subject matter of the movie. He actually played Jesus in a movie called Risen with Joseph Fiennes that I watched. I think I must have watched it 10 years ago or something like that. Underrated religious film if you're looking into that. Very, very good. But he plays Jesus, so yeah.
Good early recommendation. What do you think makes this movie so enthralling aside from the performance? Like, what does Mann do in your eyes specifically where it's like, man, this thing is a great slow burn of a film? And when I say slow burn, I don't mean boring. I just mean not the usual wham bam explosions, murder upon sex scene upon whatever. Mann does none of that shit here.
I think to me, what it makes this great is some of the scenes that he utilizes that really don't even have any dialogue to them. And the way that he uses cinematographer Dante Spinati to tell that story. Like a lot of these shots are right up shoulder length or next to Jeffrey Wigand's shoulder. So you're almost like it makes it more personal and more intimate. It's like you're experiencing that situation with them. There's a lot of, and that's been a signature move of Michael Mann his entire career in terms of how he does close-ups and things like that.
Gives it that documentary feel here.
It does. But a true master at work is somebody who can get a sense of emotion and evoke tension and stuff without having to have a lot of dialogue. And the two scenes that I really think about that stand out the most are the scene where Russell Crowe's Jeffrey Wigand is at the driving range.
Love that scene.
It's a stretch that lasts for about 5-6 minutes. And there's no dialogue. It's just him and that other guy who's clearly following him. And the look back and forth between the two of them as they're watching each other. And the look of paranoia and suspicion that happens on Russell Crowe's face. And then the lights getting suddenly turned off. I was like this. Obviously our listeners can't see, but I'm like holding my fists together. You are super tense about that. The other one that really stands out to me is when Jeffrey Wigand is deciding whether or not to actually do the deposition in Mississippi because he's received a gag order in Kentucky, meaning that when he gets back to Kentucky, he could be arrested for violating that. And he just goes, fuck it, let's go to court. And then he gets in that car. And and it's only a scene for like maybe like 60 seconds, but it's this funeral. It's almost like it's almost like an anti-funeral procession, because he's some way going to his doom, but it's also kind of heroic. And the only thing that plays in the background is that ding, 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 that little guitar riff, which you actually hear in what was it? Gladiator stole those guitar riffs that you hear in Insider a couple times
Ah, man,
and
you
put
son
them
of
in
a bitch.
and put them in Gladiator. So a little smart move by Ridley Scott for doing that. But those are two. I mean, I see scenes like that, and I see a guy who is a master at creating tension without having to say a lot of dialogue, which is amazing to me, considering that there are so many moments in this film from Eric Roth and Michael Mann script, which to me, it was nominated for best adapted screenplay. Absolutely should have. It's amazing to me that those two scenes stick out when there's so many other scenes of intense back and forth dialogue between 2-3 people at the time that you just go like, holy shit, you're just in awe of the crackling off the page. So to have those two lesser scenes where there's really not a lot of dialogue stick out, I think that's what gives this movie the special sauce and what makes Michael Mann the director that he is.
I was joking around with a coworker today at a meeting. I was like, you know what? It was like a silly comment, but that's kind of my bag, baby. I was like, I kind of miss driving down the street or driving past a business and you see somebody outside smoking on their cigarette break. Like you don't see it anymore. And then you start thinking, man, nobody smokes anymore. I mean, I couldn't imagine one of my daughter's friends having a cigarette. Like it would almost be, I think I would probably do a triple take if dropping them off at school, I saw somebody having a smoke. But back in our day, that was quite normal to see. Like, we can all probably think of 10 or 12 people from high school that we remember having a smoke. And I bring this up because
I'm smoking right now. No.
I got myself a Winston-Salem in my mouth here. Got myself a Newport dangling from my right side of the lip. No, but I wonder if this movie loses a little bit of its edge as time goes on, because there's very little, if any, smoking in this film, if memory serves.
Yeah, that's kind of an irony.
Not that you needed to see it the same way we debated, with Oppenheimer. Do you need to see the devastation from the bombs? But in here, I wonder if like 20 years from now, if like my daughters go to watch this or anybody and they don't realize how smoking has just fallen off a cliff in a good way, is it gonna like have the same oomph for those of us that lived through the smoking golden era?
I mean, that's a good
maybe
point,
not,
but you can obviously. The thing about The Insider is, yes, it's focused on whistleblowing for the tobacco industry, but you could draw parallels to this to any type of corporate entity that's doing shenanigans that they shouldn't be. Look at all the shit that goes on, with the healthcare industry that people, kind of have to push to the side because if they think about it too much, they'll probably go crazy. Or, the data mining that goes on and shit like that. So I think that still will make this relatable. I see the point that you're trying to make, that younger generations from now, 15, 20, be like, man, was this such a big deal? Like nobody smokes anymore.
And it didn't hit me until I was talking about with my coworker today. I'm like, well, shit, because I'm doing the Insider tonight on the pod, and man, there's like no smoking in this freaking movie.
And it's funny. I think of the movie Thank You for Smoking. I don't think there's a lot of smoking in that either. Kind of an irony of both of those films.
But that at least showed a bunch of ads, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did show a bunch of ads in that situation. So yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from in that regard. And honestly, funny enough, I think one of the biggest legacy of Jeffrey Wigand and this movie is, to your point, which is that we see a lot less smoking than we used to. We see vaping. There's definitely vaping, but even that's starting to go a little bit down, I think, too. I think more than anything, it's kind of been carried over to a lot of, dispensaries and CBD and gummies and things like that, rather than the smoking. Because in a lot of ways, it's a less, it's not as much of a health risk. So honestly, that's kind of an enduring legacy of this film, that from a positive note.
I'd be curious to know what are like the three main reasons. I mean, there's no way to truly know, but if you were to ask God or whatever, hey, what are the three main reasons smoking took a nosedive? I wonder what they would be. I mean, is it the advertising, or not the advertising, but the
Like
PSAs, but like the education about what could
Yeah.
happen? Is it the fact that maybe Gen X was like, hey, son, daughter, don't do this. It ain't worth it. It's way too much freaking money. We regret it. Is it that? Is it the fact that you don't really see a whole lot of smoking in movies or cartoons anymore where it used to always be a thing?
I
Who
think
knows?
I think it's a lot of those factors. I think
Like
all of
pop
them,
culture, I mean.
everything you just said, absolutely plays a role. I think, as much as we riff on the corny PSAs that stuff happens, I do think that they had some impact. I do think that, like you said, our generation may be passing along saying, smoking is just not good. I honestly think more than in movies like The Insider, pop culture, things like that. I honestly think one of the biggest detriments is the fact that it's so damn expensive now to smoke. It's like $10 a pack or whatever the hell it is. I really, obviously, I don't smoke, but I see that every once in a while, and I go into the, Suminoko or do something like that. But yeah, it's interesting because how much of a generational change that's been in just the last 25 years. Because, like you said, you and I don't know about you, my mom was a smoker her whole life, and I always
My
laugh
parents
because
too.
I always laugh because they still smoke or no?
No, they quit 7 years ago, maybe.
Oh, okay.
For
My
good,
mom
for good.
my mom tried to quit multiple times during her life. Smoked since the time she was 16. She only finally quit smoking when she finally got cancer and didn't smoke for the last 10 years of her life. But she always laughed because she said, "Yep." She's like, "I don't regret it though. I enjoyed every goddamn cigarette I ever smoked." Little old Catholic lady swearing like that. But I always laugh at, like you said, we grew up with smoking like that. I always laugh at that. Have you seen that one meme of it was a Mel Gibson from the 80s when he had the long hair and he's got a
Yes.
cigarette and it said something like your mom watching you open Christmas presents during the 80s. That was my fucking mom. 100%. Sitting there smoking, watching us open our Christmas presents.
That's one
Absolutely.
of my all-time favorite memes, by the way. Whoever came up with that, I salute you. Hey,
Yes.
you mentioned some of the guitar licks behind Crowe in this and Gladiator. So we got to pivot to score because that's something that you interestingly texted me about how we may have different opinions on the score. And to be honest, I don't recall too much right now about the score, but if memory serves, wasn't it very kind of haunting, almost like horror film like?
Yeah,
Or
there
no, I was so caught up in like the performances and what Mann was doing. I got to be honest, I kind of like lost track of the score.
Yeah, the score isn't huge in this.
It's subtle, right?
Lisa Gerard and Peter Bork's score is very subtle. I'd say it is. I tell you what, you picked up on an excellent point that I didn't even think of until just now. Is that the score is in some ways almost like a semi horror ish score, which is reflective of the topic as a whole. This is kind of a horror show if you look at it from
Right.
a wider range of devastation to people's lives and the impact that it has. It's only when like certain like those those guitar riffs that kind of play every once in a while, and I've never really felt, except with the exception of maybe Heat, that man was always that man thought that this a score was a huge deal. Not that he doesn't think it's important or integral to the story, but it's not like Spielberg, who needs a full orchestra every single movie he does because that's the type of director he is. As you said, the what happens here, all the intense scenes, they kind of speak for themselves. So you don't need that overwrought kind of dramatic score. You can have that nice subtlety to it. And I'll put it this way: I think it's so subtle and in the background that it gives you that level of tension throughout most of the movie, especially when there's those paranoid moments that happen with Russell Crowe's character of Jeffrey Wigand in the movie.
Yeah, especially I think
I'm
of that.
sorry. I was gonna say what I meant when I texted you was like I wondered if you were gonna pick up on the fact that the guitar riffs in this film are the same guitar riffs that are in Gladiator.
Oh,
That's what
because
I was trying to say.
as soon as you texted, I'm like, oh yeah, because how did you word the text? It was like, I'm curious
Um,
if you and I are gonna have the same thoughts about the score.
I'll go to the tape. Hang on. Let's see here.
Because I
Uh,
immediately thought, oh shit, he's gonna
I
hate the
said
score, and
going
I
to be
just don't
interest.
remember it.
I said going to be interesting to see if we both picked up on the same thing about the score from the Insider.
Ah, okay. So yeah, I think I thought you were gonna say I despised it or I loved it, and I'm like, shit,
Oh yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of it. You mentioned the tension-filled moments. The driving range is awesome. I mean, just the looks, like you said, him going out to the parking lot. You don't know if there's like another guy in the parking lot. They don't really go overboard, I feel like, with the intimidation from the tobacco company, but it's just enough. And I
Yeah.
feel like, man, I feel like other directors could have went way overboard with like, you know, all these different threats and they really kind of level it off after like the first hour, I would argue. But I like the whole him running outside. There's the footprint in the dirt. His daughter out there. There was a moment where I thought, once he loads his gun and goes out there, oh, is he going to turn around and accidentally shoot his daughter? Right. There was like a lot of those little moments like that built up. But I thought Mann did almost pretty exquisite in how he sets this whole mousetrap up, because you do really feel more than other films like you're in Russell Crowe, like you're in Wygan's shoes, where I'm like, crap, what would I do in this situation? I like to think it would be easy to just screw these guys. I'm going to do my thing. Then there's part of me that thinks, I'm sure there's criticism out there about it where it's like, all right, we're rooting against this big company, but it's not like Wygan's like this blue collar. I mean, they're living freaking high on the hog here.
Yeah.
Maybe have like one less car or live
And
in a little bit
even
less.
Bergman points that out. It's like, hey, you were off at your golf tournaments raking in your money and stuff. So don't act like you're a
Right.
saint. And I think that's the nice thing about this movie is they don't listen. I 100% believe that Jeffrey Wagner is a hero for what he did.
Yeah.
But they don't try to paint him as a saint. He had his wife, who had MS, and then suddenly he leaves her and the daughter, even though it was like a mutual decision. He even is, he said, sometimes I drink too much. I get things that happen, all the stuff that happen. And again, most of that is a smear campaign, but I don't think you can have a successful movie like this. And with Jeffrey Wigand or Russell Crowe's character being some kind of saintly figure, no one's going to buy into that. We buy into that because he is a family man. He's a husband. He's a father. He's somebody who's trying to provide for his family. And to your point that you talked about before about the intimidation tactics, where they don't go overboard too much, I'll put it to you this way, and I think you'll agree. We are both husbands. We are both fathers. And I don't think it really takes a lot of psychological torture to fuck with your head when it comes to your wife and kids. So
Yeah.
the simple thing of putting a bullet in your mailbox, finding a shoe print in your garden, or getting a message that your wife sees through your computer that says, shut the fuck up, we will kill you, we will kill all you, would be enough to put anybody into a tizzy. I know it would be me.
Yeah, and even when they dig into his past and they talk to his was it his ex-wife?
His ex-wife, yep.
That's even scarier today when you've got all the social media access, right? And you could go and you could search for, if somebody was arrested before and there's mugshots online or something. Even nowadays, people rag on others if they like a post from like 10 years ago. It's like, oh, you like this post about Nazis. What kind of a man are you? Right. So there's all this like counter research and so yeah, I think that would be actually scarier nowadays. But yeah, to Mann's credit and to Crowe's of course too, there's so many moments and scenes where Wygand's really just like he's reflecting, right? He's reflecting on what he wants to do. He's thinking about it, very introspective. And I think you need those moments to propel the film.
And I really want to spend a moment.
Like, it's not like he just decides one day, he snaps his fingers, I'm going to the news. That's it.
No,
like he's wrestling with this.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's what makes it realistic and has that air of verisimilitude, because I don't think most of us put in that position, as much as we think we'd like to do the right thing. And we hope that we would. Let's not sit here and say that this would be an easy decision. There are
the jail time
play, and the jail time, and
that's huge,
and the impact to your wife and kids and stuff like that.
Once the jail time option comes in, then it's like, oh man, I don't know anymore.
Because listen, cards on the table, a thing that men don't talk about as much, because when you think of jail time, the first thing I think of is ass rape, and I don't want that shit. And I don't think a lot of guys, when there's like they will do
Yeah, you're
anything
right.
to avoid stuff like that.
Especially if
So
you're a nice guy like us, right?
yeah, I mean, I think anybody would do anything to avoid stuff like that. But that if you're a guy, that's the
No, but I
first
mean,
thing
like,
you
if you're
think
not
of
this
when you think of
intimidating
jail.
guy, if you're not this intimidating alpha male person, like I
Yeah.
don't think we are, we're probably not going to scare away
Yeah, I'm
you
not
know,
this. We're not
the
going to scare away
gangs
the
in
sisters.
prison.
From it's like I'm self-aware enough to know that I would be a complete bitch. I'm not I am who I am, said Popeye the Sailor Man, but
And do I have it in me to shiv somebody on the first weekend
yeah,
just to show that I mean business? I don't know if I
okay.
got that in me. I don't
Well,
know.
that's a psychological thing. What is the type of person that I'm going to have to become to survive in an environment like that, if I survive at all? So you can,
Yes.
that's the fear that comes into play. So you can get into Jeffrey Wigand's head. And I really want to speak to a moment to talk about, I mean, we really haven't even touched on Russell Crowe's performance. This is a transcendent performance, and everything. He's not the alpha male like you see in as Maximus in Gladiator. Everything is like in the jaw. The acting is in the jaw or in the eyes, and there's tension, and you have this carefully composed, analytical, meticulous scientist who is just barely keeping a lid on his emotions.
It looks like he's about to pop every 2 minutes. Like he's just
Yeah.
going to lose his shit. Like
Yep.
Michael Douglas and Falling Down every 2 minutes that we see this guy. Yeah, the fidgeting, the looking around. He just seems like a very anxious dude. And I
Yeah.
think they play that up. Crowe plays that up. Mann helps. This isn't a character that gets lost in the background, right? I mean,
No,
Russell Crowe's, I think he's like 6 foot, isn't he?
I think
Or is
something
he?
like that.
I mean, it's hard to tell because Pacino's so small.
Right.
But Crowe
Gino's like
has
5'6" or something, 5'7".
But Crowe has some physical presence. I mean, it's hard to look at Crowe.
6 feet tall. You were right, sir.
Oh, okay, right on the money. So it's hard to look at him and not think Maximus because he's played such a, physically intimidating guy in there with presence. So it's hard not to see that here. But I think Mann does a good job of kind of shielding that, right? He's not standing up against other guys where you could kind of see the difference at height. But yeah, he's fantastic at here. I mean, you take that run that Crowe had that we talked about last week, where you've got Beautiful Mind, you've got Master and Commander, you've got this, you've got LA Confidential. It's an epic, like, I don't know how many years it is,
It's like
7,
a
8
10-year
years.
run that's pretty good. 8, 9
Yeah,
year
I
run.
mean,
Pretty
it's
great.
awesome. It's like I said before, if you could take Crowe's best 7 films, I'd put him up against a lot of other people's 7 best films, even though those other actors probably have a best 15 films compared to Crowe.
I just wish he was not in shit like The Pope's Exorcist and Craven the Hunter. And, I feel like we're due for him to come back with like a really excellent performance. There's a movie
Yeah.
that's coming out next year where he's actually playing who is Hitler's the head of the Wehrmacht? Goering? Was it Goering? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be all about it's a
Oh,
Nuremberg
he's playing
trial.
him?
He's playing Goering. So yeah.
Ah.
I think it's called The Nazi
Oh, yeah.
and the Scientist or something. The Nazi and the Doctor, something
That's
like
the
that.
one that I just read the book based on the psychiatrist interviewing him and trying to figure out.
Right?
It was fantastic. It was like, holy
Okay.
shit. Yeah, that should make a good movie. Yeah, he was fantastic here. Like I said, it's a 3-actor film, but you've got a lot of good side pieces in there. Even like Bruce McGill's small little role as the lawyer. We talked about Cliff Curtis.
Bruce McGill is like the extra dose of cinnamon that makes that cookie pop. Anything he's
I'm
in,
laughing just thinking about that performance. So.
He's like he's been in such
wipe that
little
smirk off your face.
This is the state of Mississippi. No, but I get it though. But that is such a great scene. He's like object to this. It's like she wrote it down in a little thing. Oh, you got your rights and ups and lefts and ups and downs and middles. So what? But it's true because he's trying to this hotshot asshole lawyer from Brown and Williamson, I think is the name of the tobacco company, is trying to intimidate. So he thinks he's some podunk lawyer, with 2 ties at home or something. He's like, you're not going to fuck with me here, man. I work for the state of Mississippi. I know what's what. And it's like, this is a deposition. and that's how that works. So I love Bruce McGill is a guy who comes in and he can come in and cook for like 2 scenes and add a little special something to I almost wish he was in more shit, because I think he's a great character actor. He is one good role away from getting a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. I really believe that.
Yeah, he almost gets he doesn't get enough time to cook. And I feel like when he does, the time that he does get, he kind of has to bring it so much that one could make the argument that like, oh, maybe he overacts a little bit. But it's almost like you got your shot, right? It's like the guy getting into the game with like a minute to go in the fourth quarter. And it's like, well, of course he's going to be putting up some silly shots, because it's like, I got to do something here. I'm not getting any minutes. And that's Bruce McGill here. But as in every Michael Mann film, I'm always curious to see like who's going to join who's at the party, right? Like who's coming to play here. And you got some interesting dudes like Philip Baker Hall, always good. You know, it's hard to see him as Don Hewitt if you know Don Hewitt and you read up, but interesting performance. Michael Gambon, don't get enough of him. Really like that one scene, and then you just see those clips from the courtroom, and that's it.
He's such a creep. He's like that whole scene.
Good casting.
Where he is at that scene between him and Rygand.
Yeah.
Where he's making comments and asking questions, and there's a subtle undertone to what the question. He's asking surface questions, but the real question is underneath the question, if that makes any sense. And Jeffrey Wygand is sitting there pointing that out. You know, you're threatening me. You're threatening my family. You know, it's like, he's like, you trying to fuck me? Well, fuck you. And then gets up and leaves. Yeah, you almost wish he would have been more. That would have been an interesting side movie. It's just all his shenanigans and bullshits. But he in the couple scenes that he ends, he just kind of sells that for sure.
Yeah, and the one thing I forgot about too is at the end there, when there's the kind of the bum rush for the Unabomber at the end. I like how Michael Mann kind of incorporates that whole story. This is like, oh yeah, I forgot that's all going around during the same time in the 90s there.
I forgot what the hell that was all about. I'm like, where is he? What's going on here? And then I was like,
yeah, I'm like, did I miss something? Did I like look at my phone or whatever? I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. And hey, how about Diane Venora, Jeffrey Wygand's wife? You know, for the longest time, I mean, for the first like hour, I'm like, why does she look so familiar? And then I'm like, oh my God, Pacino's wife in Heat. Like, it took me so long to figure it out.
Some way she comes off as that rich housewife that doesn't have to do anything all day long except for really, pick up the kids, and then she can go about and spend her money and do whatever bullshit. And
it's a tough lift for that actress.
And she's somewhat superficial, especially that first, incidents where he says, I got fired today. And the first thing she says is, what about our car payments and the house and the kids' school? And the first thing she does not ask him is, are you okay? How are you doing? She doesn't ask those things. And you can see it in the way he reacts. And he's just like, they gave me a severance package in healthcare. We're going to be fine for a while. Do you need anything at the store? Because he is just biting back that rage. Because I don't know if you've ever been in a layoff before, but it's happened to me twice. And both times my wife, God bless her soul, Megan, was like, are you okay? What do you need? She wasn't,
sure.
Obviously, I'm sure she was thinking about the financial stuff, but the first thing she thinks of is me and my well-being, just like I would do the same thing for her if she lost her job or had something tragic going on. So you really kind of are against the wife at that point.
And in a way, I think it endears you to Wygand. Because you're like, shit, that's one more person against him.
It does. And then what's interesting is that later on, when he's about to go testify for the deposition, she comes down and just like, I can't do this anymore, Jeff. I love you, but this is too much. And you can feel it at that point because you've seen the death threats. You've seen that she's had to deal with the kids more. They've moved to a different, all these different things that have happened. And there's only so much stress that somebody can take, wondering if somebody's going to come around the corner and snatch your 8-year-old. So you knew when he said, can we just talk about this when I get home? And she says, yeah, we can talk about it then. You're like, she's not going to be there when he gets back. And sure enough, he walks into that empty house.
And we got to give a shout out to Haley Eisenberg as little Wygand, the daughter, aka the Pepsi girl.
Yes.
Nice little nice. It's nice seeing her again because I kind of forgotten about it. She hasn't really done much. I don't know what she's doing nowadays.
Probably drinking Pepsi. So
Jesse Eisenberg's sister, of course, she's 32 at this point. So what else jumped out at you on the rewatch? Is this a movie you've seen multiple times in the past? Is this like a big rewatch for you?
Like you, I think this might be the third time I've seen it, because it's hard to find. I mean, I thought at first it was hard to find digitally, but it's not.
It's not something you throw on a Sunday morning.
No,
you know?
it's not. It's
before
a
the Bills game.
Yeah, right. It's a heavy movie, but I think it is going to be released in 4K next year, so I'll probably pick it up then. But I just felt this is only, like you said, like you did. I think this is about the third time I've seen this. So, but it almost made it a little more special because of that when I went back and revisited this situation. But I feel it's so much more relevant, especially the news aspect of things, where we're already starting to see that mainstream media is being owned by corporate overlords and is pushing their own narratives and is deciding, hey, we're going to have a rationality. We're going to have a rationality or a bias meter in the LA Times. And, we're going to capitulate a $15 million lawsuit to someone that actually said the truth that's on public record. But some reason we're going to do that. Like everybody, it's harder and harder to have concrete news that isn't just opinion related, because everything feels so opinion related. And I really felt that the moment at the end where Lowell Bergman's like, I gotta check out. He's like, he's like, what happens the next time that I can't, help an informant or the guy that's coming forward? Or he already was seeing the writing at the wall that the corporations that own the media like that are going to make more of the decisions, and they're going to call more and more what they think the news actually is. And what a shitty state of affairs to be in that 25 years later, it's gotten worse, not better.
Lowell Bergman, 79, still alive.
Still kicking.
Still with us. 60 Minutes, still alive, still awesome. I always like to try to catch that on a Sunday, even though I hate it because it always comes on late. It's like, I want to watch it at 7. I don't want to watch it at 7:37 when the freaking, Titans game is over with.
Right.
Or whatever. But, yeah, still holds a lot of weight in my little world. But yeah, I love seeing the behind the scenes stuff. That was cool too, from like a network TV standpoint, to see like how they kind of weigh these stories, because that is a thing. And that's it's a tough one too, because even Mike Wallace talks about it. Like obviously there's the big purchase that's underway, right? Mm-hmm. Like who CBS is going to be, bought up by. But there's also the kind of the debate over, okay, is this guy, or can we put so much on this one guy? Are we gonna can we trust this guy?
Because it is a human being. Because even Wygand says a couple times, am I just a source to you? Do you even count the cost? I've got to live with these consequences. And kind of Lloyd or Lowell kind of reacts against him in this case, which I get both perspectives, which is the best thing. One of the best things I can say about this film is it's very nuanced. There is it's not really straightforward, other than the fact that the tobacco companies are in the wrong for lying, but no one is a simple is one-dimensional when it comes to their character. And I think everybody, for the most part, has a certain degree of humanity, whether it's Mike Wallace, whether it's Jeffrey Wygand, whether it's Lowell Bergman. I think that they are in some way, shape, or form trying to make the world better and tell a compelling story. I mean, I love that little section where Pacino's Bergman is creating the segment, and he's saying, okay, I want you to do this shot and then cut away to here, make sure the pause is a little bit longer there. The way that he's like an artist in that sense. He's like crafting the story that it's going to be informational, but it's going to be compelling for the viewer and suck them in and get them invested, much like Michael Mann does with the movie.
I can't wait for what's Mann's next project.
It's supposed to be Heat 2. But haven't really heard much about it, because, and I honestly, I hope that's what his next thing is, because I'm sorry, but Ferrari was not great.
Still haven't seen it, and I've taken your word for it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Now for the Leo McKern Award, named for the lovable drunk Imperious from 1985's Lady Hawk. This award goes to the character we would most like to have as the neighbor, Corey Cook. Who do you like in The Insider?
I got to go with Bruce McGill's Ron Motley. I know.
Same. Darn it.
He just. I will always respect any character who has that level of passion.
Boy, he goes, boy, you got rights and lefts, ups and downs and middles. So what?
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. He's easily. It's him for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would love the legal stories. I would love the passion, which he talks about football or gas prices. Right, you get all that shit.
Yep.
When you've got his character, Ron Motley is the name of the character. Bruce McGill, we salute you, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, boys and girls, and however you identify across the galaxy, it's time for Luke and Corey's recommendations. This can be anything. This can be books, can be movies, can be music, can be a song, a dance, a poem, a quote, a sunrise, a sunset. Anything and everything is up for grabs. Mr. Luke Mayo, what are some of your recommendations this month?
I actually kind of predicted this on Twitter or Blue Sky or one of them within the last maybe month or two, and I think it's come to fruition. I would say Skeleton Crew, Star Wars. I think it's the real deal so far. It's 4 episodes in. It's a delight. It has that. I know it's a cliche because we've seen it all in the hype. It is that Goonies meets Star Wars feel. It gives you some of the emotions and some of the hey, I'm stepping into like a new world that you got with A New Hope. It feels very analog-y. I like the characters, the goofball characters. Some of the heroes. There's a lot of like what ifs. There's a lot of mystery so far. It's kind of like unspooling before you, as opposed to say Andor or the Mandalorian. I shouldn't say the Mandalorian, as opposed to say Andor, where you kind of have an idea of where this is eventually going. It has kind of more of that A New Hope vibe where you're just kind of riding with this crew. I'm curious to see where they go with it, where it ties into the broader universe, but so far, so really good. 4 episodes. I recommend Skeleton Crew on Disney Plus.
I might have to take your word for it.
It's not going to blow you away,
yeah.
But I feel like if this came out, if this was the first Disney the first project in the Disney era of Star Wars, I think the hype would be a little bit bigger. But at this point, it's like Boy Who Cried Wolf, right? Like every one of these shows and movies has been, I'm hearing it's pretty good until everybody starts shitting on it.
I'll be honest.
Jude Law.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not the next Star Wars thing I'm really honestly interested in is Andor season 2 when it comes out next year. I might give this one a shot, but I've just been burned so bad lately with Star Wars that I'm waiting for it's like waiting for the 80s Yankees to be great again in the 90s. That's that's the only way I can compare it.
Right.
So my first recommendation, one of 7. I've got a shit ton tonight, but it's just because of the fact that it's been a while since we've been here, and I've had some excellent experiences with things that I just got to share. My first recommendation is one that you actually gave the last time, and that's the documentary Music by John Williams that's on Disney Plus. I loved that documentary. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. I love the line where it says, no person's day has been made worse by listening to John Williams music.
Great line.
And it was just an interesting thing how he became what he did, because he really kind of wanted to do jazz. I mean, that was one of his things at one point. And the death of his wife, how that really influenced a lot of his greatness that happened into the 70s and onward. And the one that really struck me too is when he said the only thing that really, really affected me once was when he saw Schindler's List. And he said, I had to take 5 minutes to just walk around the building. And he came up to Steven, and this floored me. He says, Steven, I'm not worthy enough to compose something like this. You need a much better composer for a movie of this magnitude. And he says, yes, I know, John, but they're all dead. And that just made him laugh. Or even the guy is just, he's brilliant. Highly recommend it. Great movie. Still going strong at, I think, 93. So kudos to him.
Love that. Might have to rewatch it. That's how good that sucker is. My next recommendation, a Netflix film, brand spanking new, called Carry On, a thriller starring Taron Egerton.
Heard of this one?
of Kingsman fame. I've never seen the Kingsman movie, so I don't have any history with Taron Egerton. I thought he was pretty good in this. Justin Bateman's in it. Jason Bateman is in this. Yeah, Edgerton pretty much plays a security guy at LAX airport, and all of a sudden he gets a call. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. A terrorist plot ensues. He's got to like thwart the plot, even though he's got people keeping their eye on him. It's super one of those, hey man, you're in this situation. What would you do? Yeah, there's some bullshit, of course, because it's one of those Netflix movies and they seem to pump these things out. But it's a fun watch. I think it's worth it. It's worth 2 hours. Go check out Carry On Netflix.
All right. My next recommendation, we talked about James Gunn a little bit earlier today, but the first official project at the DCU kicked off a couple weeks ago, and that's Creature Commandos on Max. I got to say, I'm having a blast with this so far. It's basically Task Force M. Task Force X was basically the Suicide Squad, but this is actually follows Frank it's Rick Flag Sr. So played by Frank Grillo, who leads this team of misfits, technically monsters, through this task because one of the creature or person by the name of Cersei, who's apparently from Themyscira, where Wonder Woman is trying to take over the world. So it's the sorted cast of characters. There's Indira Varma, who plays the bride. She's literally the bride of Frankenstein. Each episode has a little bit of a background for each one. There's this guy named Dr. Phosphorus. There's another person who's Nina Magursky, who is like this. She's a scientist, but she has she's somehow like a fish person. And everyone of them is endearing. There's the best for me so far that I love is GI Robot, because he is this like robot that was basically created during World War II to kill Nazis. And his backstory is very interesting because he basically becomes a person out of time that has no more Nazis to kill. But it's funny. It's gory. It is, classic James Gunn. It's a good time. It's really quick. There's only going to be 7 episodes, and I think they're only like 20, 25 minutes long. I love it. Check it out. Creature Commandos on Max.
Shame on me if I recommended this last time. I don't think I did, but I think we discussed it. I finally been getting around to watching Dune Prophecy, and I love it so far.
So good.
Characters are swell. I feel like I'm in the world. It world builds well, which is I feel like tough if you're, especially in the Dune universe, because there's a lot of world to build and to show you, but it gives you just enough of what you need to know. There's a lot of characters. I like movies with a lot of characters, even though I hate novels with a lot of characters. Dostoevsky, eat shit. The overall plot hooks you, I think, relatively early. So I was surprised by how good this has been. I know we talked about like when it first came out, I wasn't that pumped until I saw the trailer. That propelled me to watch it, and I'm glad I did. Check out Dune Prophecy, even if I would argue you're not like the biggest Dune fan. I feel like there's a lot here to dig into.
It's an excellent show. It's actually far better than I thought it was going to be in some ways.
Yeah.
Like I had high expectations, but the acting, the set design, there's some excellent. The script is excellent. There's been some holy shit like House of, Game of Thrones moments,
stuff. Yeah.
But some characters doing some shit that I was like, I did not see that fucking coming. That I think was great. The only thing that's kind of surprising to me is that there's only one episode left. There's a 6-episode season. So
I know that.
I feel like they've got a decent amount to wrap up pretty quickly here. So
That
I'm hoping
sucks,
it gets
yeah.
more than one season. But yeah, I recommend that as well. My next recommendation is I've been talking about the Joe Ledger books. Well, I've decided to take a break from that and read something else that the same author wrote. He actually decided to delve into fantasy a couple years ago, and so I started reading, and I'm on the second book now, but I'll recommend the first book in a trilogy called Kagan the Damned by Jonathan Mayberry. I say this with no hyperbole. This is the best fantasy I've read since George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire. It's a dark fantasy. In some ways, it feels very Conan-esque, but it's basically about this person who is a captain to protect what he called the seedlings, who were basically the heirs to the Silver Empire. And one night he wakes up, he's been drugged, he's and to find that the entire city and all across the kingdom has been attacked by this witch king and who's using magic because magic's been banished. Everything basically gets wiped out. he has this vision of basically his gods turning on him. So he self-styles himself Kagan the Damned. He falls into kind of a drunken mess for a while, and then it starts to become his quest for revenge. But it has a lot of those tropes, but also there's kind of some H.P. Lovecraft action going on here too, because they talk about the elder gods and things like that. But also there's some interesting commentary on military action, religion, who gets to write history, and is the people that are technically that you think are virtuous and the victors, their empires are built on thrones of blood and repression too. It's got excellent characters, funny, inventive, bloody, excellent. If you are a fantasy fan, freaking check this thing out. Kagan the Damned by Jonathan Mayberry. There's 3 novels. The third and final one in the trilogy actually just came out earlier this year.
Heavy praise. This might tie into it. My next recommendation, angel food cake. I haven't had this. I haven't had this in about, 15, 17, maybe 20 years. I had some the other day, and I was like, man, this is light, fluffy. You can dip it into like strawberry sauce, and you can get crazy with it. I enjoyed it. It feels like you're eating a piece of cloud. Um, Probably not the most healthiest thing, but I'll tell you this: after 2 bites, I actually wrote it down in my little app. I'm like, all right, this is going on the recommendations list. So get your mouth around some angel food cake and do it pronto.
That was the sentence you chose to go with, huh? Interesting. Okay. My next recommendation is going to be a movie that is probably going to get a lot of Oscar nominations. It's been on everybody's lists. It's on Peacock right now, but Conclave, movie by Edward
Oh my
Berger,
gosh. Jeez, yes.
who starring Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John
Just
Lithgow.
watched it 2 days ago. How did I not put this on the freaking list?
What a compelling, exciting, interesting film. Basically
Something
involves
new.
the Pope dies, and then there's all these manipulations about who's going to be the next Pope, and
Don't spoil it.
nobody is quite who they seem to be, and there's a mysterious Pope that comes in a mysterious cardinal that comes in that nobody is expected. It has an ending that I did not see coming at all.
Same.
That I'm not. It's one of those things that I'm not 100% sure it works or not for me. I could give this movie a solid 9. I think it's one of the best of the year.
We got to discuss that ending, and maybe this will propel people to watch this. I want to discuss this ending after we stop recording, because I'm curious to see where you thought it was going, because not where I thought it was going.
I'll put it this way: the way the movie ends, and what one of the
Careful, you son of a bitch.
characters says, and how he reflects the real ideals of Jesus and his teachings, and how it applies to the modern world, and how we need to think about that rather than jockeying for positions of power, really struck me as somebody who's a Christian and a former Catholic. So I did appreciate that. But overall, just in terms of script, acting, cinematography, score, it's just such a propulsive. It's almost like a Agatha Christie novel in the Vatican, strangely enough, but nobody's really been murdered. So I dig it. I dig the hell out of it. So Conclave, highly recommend it. Watch that sucker.
Yeah, I got to recommend it too, just to kind of piggyback. Yeah, I think I saw your recommendation and then somebody else's, and I'm like, crap, where's everybody watching this stuff? I don't have time to go to the theater. And I'm like, oh shit, it's on Peacock or Paramount, wherever it was, on Peacock, right?
Yep.
Peacock. I'm like, oh crap, threw that sucker on, and I wasn't even sure I was in the mood for it based on what I'd heard, but I'm like, okay, now this thing kind of moves. I really enjoyed the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, the colors, just the red. It was, I think more than anything, it's a different world that they put you in. So it was something different than the usual horse shit. That's what was compelling too.
My one friend loved it until the end, until he said it went woke.
Yeah, okay.
I can kind of see what he's saying, but not really.
But no, it's just a good, like, I think it's one of those movies, if you never talked about it or saw it again for another 12 years, you would know like certain scenes and certain feelings that you got. I think that's a sign of a compelling film. I'm out of recommendations.
Okay. Well, I got 3 to go. The next recommendation I have is I finally got the game that I got my Xbox for, which is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And let me tell you, this thing is amazing. It is unbelievable. You are Indiana Jones. I mean, to set the stage for what it is, it's set in 1937, and it's canonically between Raiders and oh my God, Last Crusade. And basically what you find is you wake up in the middle of the night. Indy wakes up in Marshall College finding that somebody has stolen this cat idol and absconded with it. And it leads you on this thing where you go to the Vatican. You are in Giza, Egypt. You end up going to Tibet, Shanghai, Sukhothai, which is in Siam, I think what it is. And essentially, the Nazis are after, they find that there's 13 spots around the world of all spiritual temple type places. And if you draw a line around the globe, it's a perfect circle. And they contain these like stones. And you eventually, I didn't find out why the Nazis are actually after this material until I believe until you get to Tibet. And then you're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. But this is like I'm telling you right now, if they had made this into a movie, like if they had set this, if say Temple of Doom comes out in 84 and we decide to release this in 87, right? This one would have cleaned up. This is a fantastic Indiana Jones adventure. There's so many cutscenes that feel like it's from a movie. Troy Baker does an excellent job of voicing the character. I cannot tell you how great this great this game is. If you have an Xbox, pick this sucker up. If you have a PS5, you're gonna have to wait for a couple months because it then will be on there. But it's a great, great game. My next recommendation is a movie that I think I've settled on as my third favorite of the year and only my third 10. And that is the documentary on Max Super Slash Man, the Christopher Reeve story. Um, there's a funny thing about grief that you never know when it's going to rear its head.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a moment 5 minutes into the film when they talked about Christopher Reeve, his son, his older son, was talking about his wife's Dana, so his stepmom. Um, it's like her hugs were like a warm bucket of sunshine or something along those lines. And I just started crying because all I could think about was my mom who passed away 8 years ago. And it just kind of goes on from there. And you learn about Christopher Reeve, the man. And he's a complex, complicated dude. He by no means was a saint at all. He left his first family, basically just said he didn't want to do this anymore. He was, the day his son was married, he went skiing with his friends the next day. So he's not, he wasn't this perfect guy, but he did a lot. He changed his life perspective, changed obviously when he got in this accident. And it looks at Superman and how that changed his life. It talks about his father. It talks about it really leaned on his relationship or talked about his relationship with Robin Williams, who is basically his best friend. And one thing that was, I think, became patently clear from watching the documentaries that if Christopher Reeve was still alive, 1,000% Robin Williams would still be alive, because
Hmm.
Robin Williams really kept Christopher Reeve alive. He wanted to let go and just say, you know what, I think you maybe should just take me off life support and let me go. And his wife and Robin wouldn't let him do that. So I feel like if that would have been the case, I think Robin would still be around. But it's a fantastic, fantastic documentary. If you know anything about Christopher Reeve, if you follow Superman, anything like that, you owe it to yourself to check it out. It's an inspirational story, and it is absolutely fucked in my opinion that it's not on the short list for best documentary feature for the Oscars. Didn't even make the short list. So highly recommend that one. Fantastic. It's on Max right now, so you can go watch it
Cool.
at any time. My last recommendation, and I only brought this, and I'm only going to be doing this one because I just found it today. And I think it's very timely considering what's going on in the climate and also very relative to the movie that we did tonight. And also, I'm sure it's something that Mr. Mike Pagano is going to be happy about because it's a quote from one of his favorite authors, Mr. Carl Sagan, from the book he wrote in 1995 called The Demon Haunted World. And I want to read a quote that he said. He said, "Science is more than a body of knowledge, it's a way of thinking. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the key manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media. The 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but essentially a kind of celebration of ignorance. And fuck my life is that if that's not an accurate description of what we're dealing with in America and the world at large today. Words of wisdom from Carl Sagan 3 decades ago.
One of the smartest dudes ever.
Indeed.
All right, next up. This is our last film of 2024. We got ourselves a big year ahead of us. 2025, sir.
Yeah, we got a lot of shit that's coming. I mean, we've got Mickey 17. We're going to be doing the Superman movie. Might even be doing Mission Impossible. That's a possibility too. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out in the new year. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're probably going to do Nosferatu, because I'll probably be like, you got to watch this, because we're both Eggers fans. But coming up in the new year to kick off January, we're going to go with a Clint film. We're actually going to go with Clint Eastwood's latest film, what may actually be his last film, from what we hear. And that's
so excited for this.
That's Juror Number 2. I was actually just listening to.
I don't want to know anything about it other than the trailer.
No, what I was going to say was I was listening to not The Ringer, not the Rewatchables, but there's the big movie, or the other one that the Ringer has, their podcast.
Oh, the Big Picture.
The Big Picture. One of them actually put Juror Number 2 as their number 2 film on the year. So I'm really excited too. Yeah, I was kind of shocked by that. So I'm really surprised. Or I'm really excited to look into this one, because I love a good Clint Eastwood movie, and I feel like they really did him dirty with the whole release situation in any event. So that is going to be our film coming in 2025 of next year. And sir, again, another fantastic season as far as I'm concerned. We're
in the books.
We're 4 years in, almost 5-year anniversary from when we started this. It is a pleasure always to do this with you. Love you like a brother. I hope we keep doing this for years on end. And it's so much fun and such a joy to do this with you. And I'm actually kind of glad that we scaled back to once a month, because I think it makes things a lot more special, believe it or not.
And I gotta say, it's actually 5 years though, right?
20 years come January.
21, 22.
So this is what, 20, 21, 22, 23. This is season 5. Right.
So
we're
wrapping up.
Next year is season 6 for us. So yeah. Thanks
Hopefully
for all your
our
chuckles.
Best yet.
Thank you for all your chuckleheads out there for continuing to listen to us.
Chuckleheads. Hey, thanks for joining us. Luke Bay with Corey Cook. The last of 2024. We will see you bastards and scallywags next year.
And remember, kids, all movie experiences are subjective. Your mileage may vary.